Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Green Flag. I'm your host, Lukas Wacker, and with me, as always, we have Kyle Cushman. And welcome to a special edition of the Green Flag. We've got another fun one in store for you guys today. We're going to be ranking some NASCAR Cup Series racetracks. We're going to use the tier maker, widely known across the multimedia platform.
Everything, yeah.
Yeah, it's a great system where you can just plop your whatever category you're talking about or whatever topic into tiers, and we're going to be doing that today with the Cup Series racetrack. So it's going to be a fun one in store for today's episode, but we have some news and notes to get to before we get into that. But before we get into all of that, how are you doing today, Kyle? It was a busy couple of days for ourselves with other sports besides racing.
Yes, I got to say, I'm doing quite well because last night was the beginning of the NHL season, of course, and the Toronto Maple Leafs won. And for you, I'm sure you're doing great too because Toronto won and Vancouver won. You got the double. So
finally,
we're living large right now. Granted, it's probably not going to last all that long, but you know what?
I think we can get.
We're living good right now, but no, it's good. We're getting some of the other sports back in business, which means soon enough, racing will be back as well. We've got Chili Bowl this week, which has been fun to kind of watch from afar on Twitter this week. But after this, we get right back into the swing of things. So I'm doing good. Leafs won, so we're all great.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more there. I'm in a great mood today. Feeling good. 2-0 for the season for my two teams there, the Leafs and the Canucks. I know it's a bit of an odd one, but we'll stay away from the hockey side of things. We'll stick to racing for this podcast, and we'll start off today's episode with the ARCA Menard series. I know it's a bit of an awkward one to start with, but it did bring some interesting news out this morning. So Bret Holmes Racing, Bret Holmes, obviously an ARCA Menard Series driver for the past couple of seasons, will expand into the Truck Series in 2021 on a part-time schedule and also stick in ARCA part-time as well. And then what comes with that, there's a caveat, Sam Mayer is going to be running with that team on a part-time basis as well. This Mayer will do 6 ARCA races and 5 Truck Series races this upcoming season. So a very interesting announcement here, Kyle. The first truck race will be at Atlanta for this team with Bret Holmes behind the wheel of that race truck. But it'll be very, very interesting to see how this team that does very well in ARCA correlates over to the Truck Series.
Yeah, it's a great announcement because anytime you see kind of that small, kind of family-owned kind of thing work its way up the ranks is always great to see. And they've had a ton of success specifically last year in the ARCA Menard Series. Of course, Bret Holmes winning the overall championship in that series. And they made their intentions known that they don't want to just stick in ARCA. They want to try and work their way up. And they're going to be doing that this upcoming year with some limited Truck Series starts. And to get a name like Sam Mayer on board as well is massive, because it would be one thing if Bret Holmes announces that he's going to have a Truck Series team. They're going to run a few races and then Bret runs them and it's all fine and dandy there. But to get arguably the biggest prospect in NASCAR right now, who's completely skipping over a full season in trucks to go straight to junior motorsports in the Xfinity Series, you've got him on board to run a handful of truck races for you and obviously ARCA as well. That's pretty impressive, I got to say, and obviously made a great impact on him running against him in ARCA this past year as well. So really fun announcement. It's always great to see more people get involved at the higher ranks of NASCAR, and Bret Holmes is no exception here.
No, definitely not. Sam Mayer is going to be a busy guy next season, going to be running part-time for Junior Motorsports, still going to be doing some stuff on the side with GMS as well. And then now this year with Bret Holmes Racing. I mean, this guy is going to be getting a lot of seat time, and that's what you want from a young prospect like Sam Mayer. But Bret Holmes as well, getting an opportunity in himself, trying to prove himself in his own equipment here. Reminds me a little bit of Ryan Sieg, just in terms of that family-built kind of racing organization. And I think this is going to be a very fun project to keep your eyes on in the Truck Series when they do run on that part-time schedule. Just how they compare to some of the bigger teams, I'm not expecting them to blow them out of the water by any means. It does take some time, and even the big teams struggle from time to time, just like at KBM over the past couple of seasons. So it's no easy feat to try and be successful in even any level of motorsports, let alone the Truck Series. So I'm very, very interested to see how Sam Mayer is able to elevate that program, if any, and then how Bret Holmes results compared to Sam Mayer's as well. It's a good testing ground for himself there too. So very interesting news coming out of ARCA. So there's not really much else to this story. We're going to see what they do when they go out onto the track in the upcoming months. But I guess we'll stick with the ARCA theme here with Gracie Trotter, Kyle, as there was news the previous week here. Now it has been finally confirmed. There was a rumor, but now it is confirmed. Gracie Trotter will be running part-time, for Venturini Motorsports in the number 25 and the number 15. His Michael Self is departing the team, so a huge opportunity here from Gracie Trotter. She won a race this past season in the K&N West Pro Series, so she is very much on the radar of many NASCAR fans. She's one of the youngest female drivers in the sport, on the way up through the ranks. And this is a very, very exciting announcement because that 25/15 car is very, very good in the ARCA Series, as Michael Self has proven on many, many occasions while he's running that car. So what are your thoughts on the move here for Gracie Trotter and Venturini Motorsports? That great pairing, it seems.
Yeah, well, first of all, there's $1 in the K&N/ARCA jar because it's ARCA West now, not K&N West. So I hate to break it to you there, but you know what? That's okay. That's okay. I think I made that mistake last time, but it's all good.
Hey, I'll take the even. It's
exactly
0-0. Even playing field. I just felt bad for the last episode. So
okay, but no, on the move itself, this is awesome because Gracie Trotter has shown quite a bit of skill out there in the Western division of ARCA. And it's the same division that we saw Hailie Deegan come from as well. So it's great to see that pipeline kind of continue and ARCA West continue to kind of produce more and more drivers at the next level because it's been significantly behind the likes of the ARCA East Series. But as that series gets older and older and more talent goes through it, it's going to be fun to see how it develops there as a series by itself. But in terms of Trotter here, this is a great move for her because Michael Self is moving on, I believe, in a coaching role in Trans Am or something along those lines.
Business owner, I think.
Yeah,
he went back to college, I read, and then is going into the ownership business.
Yeah, and so that leaves a big opportunity for drivers like Gracie Trotter to step in to a race-winning car in ARCA. And technically last year she became the first driver, female driver that is, to win under the ARCA banner. But of course, we know that there's kind of an asterisk to it because it's the same series that Hailie Deegan won 3 races in. It was just under the K&N label at that time. But Trotter here is going to have a legitimate shot at going out and winning a race in the main ARCA series, which would be the highest level that a female driver has ever won at in NASCAR, period. Hailie Deegan wasn't able to do it last year, granted with DGR, who was a lesser team than Venturini, but Venturini is a top-level team. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you can't have the super, super high expectations for somebody like Trotter, so that it's something that's realistic here. But we know ARCA isn't as deep as it used to be. We don't know what the full field is going to be like. But when she steps into the 15 or the 25, whatever she's running on that weekend, she's going to be in one of the top cars there, and she's going to have a legit shot to win. And that's going to be amazing to see. And hopefully that propels her forward in her career, because anytime you can get diversity and female involvement in any sport, it's great to see, but especially here in racing, because it's one of those few sports where it doesn't matter where you come from, what your gender is, anything like that. Anybody can sit in a car and go out and win races in it. And it's great to see people getting those opportunities like Gracie Trotter is this upcoming year.
Yeah, the ARCA Menard series is definitely having that female presence this upcoming season. Jamie Little in the booth for Fox covering the races, and now we have Gracie Trotter on the track. So nice bit of mixture there. Good to see some diversity amongst the lower levels of motorsports. Hopefully we see that rise up through the ranks as the years progress. But it's a great starting point here. Progress is being made, and we're going to have 2 female drivers to keep your eye on next season in the top 4 levels of the stock car racing, with Gracie Trotter and Hailie Deegan moving up to the truck series this upcoming season as well. So very, very interesting stuff from ARCA over the past couple of days. It's nice to give the lower series some shout outs, and these are definitely 2 intriguing storylines to keep your eye on for the 2021 calendar season. So we'll go up to the NASCAR Cup Series. We'll go up three levels higher here. We'll go up to the Cup Series as we've got some more Daytona 500 entry announcements for this upcoming Great American Race. 2 interesting ones at that as well. Noah Gragson will be running for Beard Motorsports in the number 62. Obviously known as Brennan Gaughan's old seat on the super speedway tracks, but he is now in retirement. So now Noah Gragson is the new guy that they are having to take over for that spot. But it was not their first choice, as Noah Gragson, in his kind of media spiel, released that Jimmy Johnson was actually the target for Brendan Gaughan initially. Unfortunately, Johnson declined the offer, but Noah Gragson was their second guy, and they snagged him here. And this is going to be the opportunity for him to make his Cup Series debut in this ride. He has to obviously qualify for the race and open cars we talked about on Monday for David Reagan and a couple of others. And we also have another open entry car here with Colleague Racing making their Cup Series hopeful debut with Kaz Grala being the person, not someone like AJ Allmendinger, not Justin Haley, or even Jeb Burton in their Xfinity Series program. Kaz Grala has been tabbed to take over for that specific ride for the Daytona 500. A huge opportunity for someone like him, as he's going to have the opportunity to make Colleague Racing's Cup Series debut in the Great American Race. So two very interesting notes here. Two of the younger guys in the sport. Noah Gragson, a very much up-and-coming prospect, one of the guys going into this season as a championship favorite in the Xfinity Series, and also Kaz Grala making this step up to the Cup Series. We saw him at the Daytona Road Course in that fill-in role for Austin Dillon over the past year. And he did an exceptional job there. Now he's going to have the chance to prove it in the oval in a Cup Series car at Daytona. So what do you make of these moves here, Kyle? Two very interesting ones for the Daytona 500.
Yeah, a couple of different ones, we'll say. For starters, on the Jimmy Johnson rumor, it doesn't surprise me that he's declined that offer, because Johnson has never been a guy that's necessarily been the premier super speedway driver, or has been a guy that's particularly like super speedway driving. So it's not all that surprising that he declined the offer, even though it is the Daytona 500 is the biggest one. He's won it already. There's no real draw for him to come back for that one. So I appreciate Beard Motorsports going out and trying to get the big name, but I like giving it to Noah Gragson here. We've seen him in Xfinity and in trucks as well. He's an extremely aggressive driver. At super speedways, you need sometimes to be that aggressive guy to go out and get the results. And when you look at the guys available potentially for this ride, I think they made a great hire here in Noah Gragson. He's going to be a guy that is going to show up, and he's going to try to win the damn thing. He's not going to try and sit back and kind of bide his time and be happy with like a top 10 finish. He's going to try and win the race, and that's going to be fun to see, because a lot of the time with some of the smaller teams, the gripe you might have with them is Daytona or super speedways in general are your one shot to contend with the rest of the field. And sometimes we don't necessarily see the smaller teams take that opportunity, and they're content with like the top 15 finish and just kind of riding around at the back the whole race. I can't see Noah Gragson going out and doing that for Beard Motorsports. And this is a team as well with Brendan Gaughan that hasn't just sat at the back. They've sat at the back for like 90% of the race, but in that final 10%, they're up there at the front. And you can see that in all the past results from Brendan Gaughan in his super speedway days with Beard Motorsports. The great clip of him almost taking the lead and then doing a flip and landing on all fours. So that goes to show you what that team's all about. And then on Kaz Grala, I was not expecting that tie whatsoever. When you look at Colleague Racing, you were expecting one of the drivers that they currently have under contract probably to run that race for them. And last year, Justin Haley ran the Daytona 500 for them. You would expect AJ Allmendinger, who has a ton of experience, obviously, in the Cup Series, or even Jeb Burton, who they have under contract there. But instead, it's Kaz Grala, and we've seen him at every single level be a pretty damn good super speedway driver. He's gone out and he's won races in NASCAR at super speedways. And it's going to be great to see him get this opportunity here with a team that looks to be competitive. We don't know what that level will be, but it's a super speedway race. So it's basically anybody who shows up with an engine can at least have a shot at it, if you can say, in the draft. And we know Kaz Grala's talent on the super speedways. So it's great to see, for starters, Kaz get a ride period this season, and it looks like it'll be with Colleague in the Cup Series for more than just this race potentially, which is great to see as well. I hope that it can blossom into more opportunities for Grala, because he's been a talented driver that hasn't really got as many opportunities as you maybe hope for. Just like at last year, of the three drivers that rotated through primarily the 21, he had by far the fewest races in it. So it's great to see him get this opportunity with a blossoming team like Colleague Racing, and just kind of having that tie there, because you can never know what happens down the road. When you look at it, you expect them to go full-time in 2022. You would expect one of their current Xfinity drivers probably to make that jump with them. That would open up an Xfinity spot potentially for Grala, or maybe he impresses this season in those races and maybe he lends himself a Cup Series ride. We don't know what the situation will be in 2022. So two very interesting hires, and two, if they make it to the show, of course, because they are open entries.
There's going to be some good ones missing.
Will be very, very fun to watch during the Daytona 500.
I want all these guys to make the field.
I know, like
it's going to be such a shame that if something, these unforeseen circumstances takes one of these guys out, or something that's out of their control just loses it just doesn't give them the opportunity to race for the 500. And I mean, it'd just be heartbreaking for something like this, because this is arguably the most entertaining or intriguing Daytona 500 field we've had in quite some time. Because ever since they've gone down to 40 cars, it's been kind of mediocre in terms of that dual race threat. And
there's
now
only
this
been like
year,
one or two max that missed the show, and this year
they're not surprising.
We've got
to miss
44, 45 entries. So
I think it's 44, 45 right now. We're still waiting maybe on the Gaunt brothers ride if they decide to go into this season in the 96, leaving it late 2 years in a row here for their ride. Didn't make the 500 last
with the
year.
Penske entry. We don't know if they're going to go for this one. I think the only one that we know isn't entering is Go Fast at this point.
Yes. Yeah, I believe so. I think Bob Pockers tweeted it out after these announcements today, that that's the lineup right now, that the 96 is kind of like the only one along with Cindric. So we'll keep you up to date if any other drivers want to come to the show. And I mean, I kind of want 43 cars for this 500, but at the same time, the charter rule doesn't allow that to happen. So it's going to be stuck to 40 unless NASCAR makes a late rule change here for the 500. I don't anticipate it.
But you know what? It makes the duels way more interesting. So
exactly. It's just going to be heartbreaking to see who misses out on the shot, especially for these guys hoping to make their Cup Series debut.
Yeah, like Daniel Suarez missed last year, for crying out loud.
Exactly. Like there's potential here for some upsets, and don't slack on the back marker teams as well that aren't necessarily behind these guys. They can always sneak their way up in these super speedway duels as well. So the likes of maybe JJ Yaley or somebody like that, they could I hate to say it, but like what's the organization that always wrecks? Rick Ware.
Yes.
Like if we have a Rick Ware car make it over these guys, then I mean, it's just gonna be an intriguing.
Well, those guys have the charter, so they're in.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, it's these guys, man. They just leave it late with these entries, but they always make it entertaining here. And the Daytona 500 is definitely shaping up to be something very, very special this season. 2021 is shaping up to be an exceptional motorsport season across the board. So it's great to see that these guys are taking a chance on hopefully making the Great American Race this upcoming February. So I think we move on from those guys there, Kyle. We can quickly talk about some paint schemes here that were released over the past couple of days. Namely, the one this morning, I'd say, is probably the one. We'll just quickly touch on it. William Byron and their new Exalta scheme, going away from the famous Flames that was the previous DuPont paint scheme, now formed into Exalta. Byron has run those Flames since he's come into the sport for the 24 car in the Cup Series. They're definitely shifting away from that this season, I will say that. Kind of an homage a little bit to the Rainbow Warrior in some respects in terms of the bright color schemes that they're going for, but it's definitely not a rainbow on that car, I can say that. Then we've got Bubba Wallace and their DoorDash paint scheme. We'll get onto our thoughts here in a second. We'll see. We'll see on that one. And then Martin Truex Jr., previously having no sponsorship with Reesers, but now that Eric Jones has departed the organization, Reesers will be moving over to the 19 car for this upcoming season. I believe they're taking 5 primary races, if I'm not mistaken, but I could be wrong on that. And then they've got, obviously, Bass Pro Shops taking the load over there for the sponsorship, and I believe one other organization that is sponsored that is slipping my mind right now. But that's the paint schemes. The Racers basically looks the same, just a different number on it. DoorDash, kind of underwhelming, I'd say, for myself. I was expecting a little bit more for something from that organization, and then William Byron's paint scheme, I'm going to be completely honest, I think they missed on it. If you go with that. Maybe go with a navy blue base or something like that, not a black base. But I can kind of see the people that like it, but at the same time, I'm a huge fan of the Flames paint scheme. I don't know if they ever really needed to change that. I think it's just an iconic scheme. But at the same time, I do understand that they want to make something specifically for William Byron's career now, and that's shifting in a different direction. It's kind of like an overhaul over there at Hendrick Motorsports over this offseason with new drivers, new paint schemes, new numbers, new everything basically, new personnel. Everything over at Hendrick Motorsports is taking a giant overhaul, and they just won the championship as an organization as well. So it's an interesting dynamic over at the powerhouse at Hendrick. But what are your thoughts on the 3 paint schemes that we've seen? And then 4, I guess, with the new Anthony Alfredo one.
Yeah, it was decent is what I'll say. Starting with the DoorDash 23, it's actually grown on me a little bit. It's a basic one, to say the least, but it kind of works for DoorDash and kind of their branding and everything. It's definitely not a paint scheme that blows you away or anything like that. But it's a solid looking car. So it's not like in God tier, all like amazing A+ or anything like that.
It's not going to get Paint Scheme of the Year award.
But it's
in next year's awards.
It's like a solid like B- kind of range where like it's solid. It does its job. It's nothing fancy, but it's not brutal or anything like that. So it's fine. And to that point, Truex's scheme as well is kind of more of the same, where it's just kind of one of those fine schemes where you see it on track and you're like, okay, it doesn't really stick in your mind or anything like that. It is what it is. The William Byron one, though, it's fine, but it's a significant downgrade from what it was. Like, I understand what they're going for, but then I see, like, not even like an hour after like that scheme's released, like 3 or 4 different mock-ups of like a similar kind of scheme that looks 10 times better. And
I know
that's always the thing with it, because like you can look at it and you're like, okay, I can see what they were going for. It's fine. But then when I see like a Noah Sweet like mock-up of it and it looks 10 times better, and I'm like, come on. So
I know
I want to see it on track because maybe it looks better than it does in the photos, but it just leaves you wanting more because it can be better and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it doesn't even look like they even committed to the rainbow kind of throwback. And
it's just a weird one.
It's just weird. And then Alfredo, it's the same scheme as last year, just with a new driver. So
yeah, exactly.
But you know what? We're getting more and more schemes, which means we're getting closer and closer to the 500. So it's not all bad.
Yeah, it's just like a weird design. Like what does it symbolize? Like it's just not even like a paint smear or anything like that. It's like just a rectangle that is kind of like that is a pointy tip. Like it's just really awkward. But I mean, you do you, Exalta. You do you, Hendrick Motorsports. I won't try and gripe you on it too much, but it is not your finest work. I will say that. I think there has been some legendary stuff. Saying that, though, if you go for the throwback weekend this upcoming May at Darlington and you put the old Jeff Gordon paint scheme out there with the red flames and the blue base, yeah, then I'll forgive you for this paint scheme this upcoming season. I will definitely be ordering that diecast whenever they want to. Throwback to Jeff Gordon with that paint scheme, the one I fell in love with, then we will that's going right up there, somewhere up there. So that's like the paint scheme news. Just thought we'd throw it out there because the William Byron one was a bit of a fun one.
Yeah, we don't have a ton of news, so we might as well hit on some of the smaller stuff that we don't usually get to.
Exactly. And we can move on from NASCAR here, I think, Kyle. We don't really have much else to discuss on that side of things. We can move over to Formula One. As on our Monday episode, we talked about the rumors and almost confirmation of the schedule. And I guess they must have been paying attention, so we had to get the quality and content out for you guys here on the Thursday, as F1 has confirmed the schedule changes that we discussed a little bit on Monday's episode, but an interesting little one in there as well. Bahrain will open the season in 2021, as widely speculated that Australia will be moving back on the F1 calendar. Now, Imola will be the second race of the season for this for 2021, as it's taking China's place on the schedule. China may run at a later date, but for right now, Imola is taking that spot as the second race of the season. So we go from Bahrain right into the European side of things with Imola. And then that third race is expected to be Portugal. We talked about that a little bit on Monday, but it's not fully confirmed yet. But I imagine over the next couple of weeks or even a month or two, we will finally know that Portugal will be that third race, without any circumstances, hopefully getting in the way of that. It was a great inaugural race this past season, and hopefully it does come back on the 2021 calendar. And then Australia moves to November 21st, so very, very late in the season. That's going into their summer months. Let's not forget that. It's going to be pretty hot down there in Australia, so different track conditions, different track temps. Drivers are going to have to be, and teams are going to have to prepare a little bit differently for that race than they have in the past, where it's in mid-March when it's kind of a little bit of a cooler sense down there in Australia, even though I feel like it's never really cold in Australia. It will be a bit warmer down there in November. So it's moving to November 21st, after Brazil and then before Saudi Arabia. So it's that third to last race of the season. So a very interesting spot on the calendar. It's very much backloaded now, the calendar for the upcoming season. Not as much on the front side of things before the summer break. Now the back half, it's going to be a wild stretch there with reliability issues most likely as the season winds down, and what teams can get the fastest updates and the most productive updates to their cars as the season winds down as well. Because I think that this season, Red Bull, if they take that next step when they have a double duo like Verstappen and Perez, maybe they can challenge Mercedes. It's a long season. They have plenty of time to make up a little bit if they start off slow like they usually do. There is time for them to regroup and catch them as the season goes on. So interesting news there out of Formula One. Nothing else besides those news that I just mentioned has changed on the calendar. Everything else is staying put in terms of their weekend dates and everything like that, except for Saudi Arabia and Abu Dhabi just moved back a week just because of the Australian date there. So your thoughts on the schedule reformation, I guess?
Yeah, it's something that we expected, if we're being honest. And we talked about that a little bit earlier this week when you set the schedule and you're optimistic that things will be in a situation where you can get to them and everything will be fine and dandy, but it was never a realistic kind of situation. It was always going to be best case scenario, but the most likely one was kind of having to move things around like you did last year. And the hope is that you can reschedule and not cancel like you had to last year. We can still get to most of the tracks where they're originally scheduled, but those first couple ones were always going to be ambitious to get to. It's nice to see that Australia by itself is already rescheduled for a specific date, and it'll be interesting to see how the conditions affect how the racing is and past data and everything like that that the teams have. But when you look at the start of the season, it's unfortunate that we have to start in Bahrain just because we were just kind of there when you look at the races. So it would have been nice to get to somewhere else first and then maybe get back to Bahrain, but that's just kind of how things worked out. It'll be nice to have just cars back on track, so I don't think there'll be too many complaints. But then after that, getting, of course, confirmed Imola, but then likely Portugal after that as well, is going to be great because we were maybe hoping that one of the two or maybe something else would be that kind of to be confirmed track. But if we're getting two of those, then that's just fantastic. And obviously, we're both a big fan of Portugal, and Imola was pretty solid as well, a historical track in that sense, and then kind of a new addition there in Portimao. So very excited to see both of those return and early in the schedule as well. It'll be interesting to see how those races kind of differ from last year, given the teams actually have data to pull from going into the weekend as well, which might be kind of an underrated aspect going into those races. But teams now are going to have more time to develop their cars because the season isn't starting as early as it would have. Still have to figure out what's going to go on with preseason testing because, again, they're not going to be able to test in Barcelona right now. So we don't know what that situation will be. It might be something where they kind of spend a month in Bahrain and 2 weeks of that are spent testing, a week off, and then the week after that, it's race weekend in Bahrain, something like that. I don't know what the situation will be, but it's nice to see that we're getting postponements and not outright cancellations so far.
Yeah, if China does end up making a return to the calendar, we could be looking at 24 races on the calendar this season, not just 23. If
Yeah.
they decide to put China in there somewhere, if they can sneak it in, I don't know where they will, but if they can, that's 24
Yeah.
races.
It's
And I
probably
feel like it's,
unlikely at this
yeah,
point, but it would be pretty damn cool if they could figure it out.
I feel like then you're definitely on the overloading side of things with the amount of production travel that needs to go on and everything. It's just probably best to just keep it off the calendar for this season and then reassess for 2022. There are some rumblings among the industry a little bit as well that the next generation of car for Formula One could be moved back another year as well, but that's nowhere near confirmed. There's just a little bit of rumors on that front. So hopefully that is not the case. We'd like to see the next generation of Formula One sooner rather than later, but it does provide an interesting tidbit to this upcoming season. And I'm excited for Imola, and I'm excited for hopefully Portugal to be that third race as well. And it's good to just get Bahrain, I think, out of the way to start the season. I'm a huge fan of that track. I really like it under the lights and everything like that. But like you said, it ended the season kind of last year. Now I think we can get it done as soon as we can this year, and then we just have to kind of forget about it for at least another year kind of thing. So to your point there a little bit on Bahrain, I don't know if they would test there because I feel like it's a bit difficult for travel-wise to get the parts and everything down to Bahrain and whatnot. I would think they would pick something a little closer to home, maybe something like Silverstone. I know the UK is having a lot of going
That's the
on
problem,
with COVID right now.
Because everybody getting to Silverstone at this point is extremely unlikely. So is it going to be possible somewhere in Europe? Maybe. Maybe when you go a month and a half down the road, something opens up. But as of right now, it's at least looking at the situation for me, it's probably going to be something where testing is going to have to be done somewhere where you can spend like a month, and that might just be Bahrain to start the year.
No, fair enough. I completely understand where that side is. I hope that's not the case, to be honest, because I would like to see them test somewhere else other than Bahrain. They've had their time in the limelight. I love the track, but at the same time, it's good to try a little bit of something different. But if it's not in Barcelona, I can't really complain. I'm going to be honest. Like it's probably better if it's not in Barcelona. So, yeah. That does it for the confirmation on the F1 side of things, and that's all the news and notes that I have for today's episode. A bit of a short one, but we can get into the meat of things here, Kyle.
Yeah, we can.
The fun thing that we've been looking forward to. Since kind of last season, we kind of poked at it a little bit. We threw it out there late in the year, and then now we're actually sticking to it here and going with this theme.
Yeah, I think, was this one of the ideas that we kind of tossed on during one of the shows, and we were like, hey, you know what, we should write that down. That's a good idea.
I believe so. So I'll be sharing my screen now. A bit of an interesting one. We never usually have to do this for our calls, but we will take the precaution here in doing that. So here we go. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we have got some very fun tracks in store for you guys here today. All right. I think I'll let you start this off here, Kyle. We've got so we'll get into the tiers first. So Elite. Obviously, the best of the best. You're not going to top this track, basically, on the NASCAR Cup Series calendar. There can be multiple that goes in there. I imagine there will be. Yeah. Good. Just that tier, just below Elite. You get a good sense coming out of that, going in and out of that track, basically every time a race occurs there. Average, middle of the playing field. Just, they're decent. They can have a good race. They can definitely have a bad race. They're just straight average. Needs work is the second to last category. It's something that we think that there maybe could be some potential, but more often than not, they kind of suck. That's basically what that one comes down to. And parking lot is the last fun one we've got going on. Just literally pave over it and make it a parking lot, shopping mall, whatever you want to call it. We'll just put something there instead of that racetrack because it is just an horrendous piece of structure. So quite the range in terms of our tiers, but this is going to be a bit of a fun one. So I'll let you start off today with Martinsville Speedway. We'll go in order with the tracks that we've got at the bottom here. Martinsville, where are you thinking this one goes? I think it's pretty obvious where it would go, but I'll let you make your case.
Well, obviously it's parking lot. No, of course. Martinsville, it's fantastic. It's one of the few short tracks that we've had on the schedule. It's always fantastic. Just look at the last time we were there, for crying out loud. That bad boy needs to be in Elite.
No arguments here. No arguments here.
Easy.
You don't have Martinsville in Elite. That is You're basically brainwashed. You got something really wrong if you don't think Martinsville is an elite racetrack. The oldest track on the NASCAR Cup Series calendar. It's provided great racing since its inauguration, all the way back when the sport started, and it still continues to deliver each time we go there. And can't wait for it to be the penultimate race once again for the NASCAR Cup Series season in 2021. Now we get on to a bit of an interesting one for myself.
Yeah, we go from
Richmond.
a super easy one to a tough one kind of to put in here.
Yeah, Richmond Raceway. See, this is a tough one because, you think immediately short track. It's got to be up there with good, elite even maybe, when you look at the likes of the other two that will most likely go into that category later on. But Richmond is a track that has gone through so many different kinds of scheduling changes, day or night, different kinds of traction compound maybe put on it when they go high or low. It's just a hit or miss race. And I feel like it's just a plain average racetrack. For myself, I will hear an argument, maybe put it into good, but more often than not, it's the long runs at Richmond that just continue to drag out. It's just a long run from each stage to each stage, not too much contact. There have been some great moments over the years. I know I'm a Kyle Busch fan, and 2008 sticks out to a lot of people's minds if you're a Dale Earnhardt Jr. fan, to the, he turned him, no, into turn 3. But besides that, there has been, obviously the payback there in the later race in 2008 as well from Junior to Kyle. But besides,
of course, you got to get to that in there.
No, I have to be fair. I'm not going to just be like, Kyle took Junior out. Junior did retaliate there in the fall race, but Richmond is just a bang straight average track to me. I feel like they have some really good races, but then more often than not, I feel like it's just it's leaving you wanting more. So what are you thinking for Richmond? Do you think I've got it right, or are we putting this in a different category?
Yeah, I think that's solid where it is. I don't think I'll move it from where you have it, but when I look at Richmond, it's a track that has a lot of potential. And it's just something where the track itself and the package or anything like that just kind of hasn't meshed well at this point. And it's just kind of made it an average to, honestly, maybe even needs work track. And if you make some changes to it, maybe it can become that good tier track once again. But as it is right now, I think average is very fair. I would lean more towards needs work than good, honestly, but I'm very content where it is.
I feel like it's gone downhill even more so over the past 3 or 4 years. Before that, I would maybe put it even in good. But since then, they've had some pretty long runs to end races, namely key races, because this was the playoff opener for a lot of years, or the playoff cut line. It was just kind of, or not the playoff cut line, but the last race getting into the playoffs. So it is a very interesting race for when that was on the schedule. But for right now, it's kind of in the playoffs right there, but it's just that second race in that first round. It doesn't it leaves a little bit more to be desired. So I think average goes with that one. You got another great one here.
I know.
It's the third one.
Worked out well.
Yeah. Worked out well for you here. We've got Talladega Super Speedway.
Come on, it's a super speedway. It's quintessential NASCAR. It's going in elite. When you look at Talladega, it's always so much fun, especially with the current package that they have. It's always a banger. It's always close finishes. It's always exciting. It's easy.
Yeah. I was skeptical with super speedway racing for a little bit. It's not. But since this package has come,
it's so good on this package.
It's just super, super entertaining. And they don't go single file against the wall as much anymore, if any, in the past couple of instances on these kinds of tracks. And Talladega always provides an exciting finish, I believe even more so than Daytona, because remember, that start-finish line is a little bit past where it usually is if they don't point it out in the broadcast. But Talladega is definitely a must-watch event. If you go to the track, they're investing a lot into the fan experience, and now into, the racing has just always been pretty exceptional there at Talladega. So nothing more needs to be said. It is an elite NASCAR Cup Series track. Dover, interesting.
Yes.
I'm getting all the tough ones here, and it's gonna need work for me. It's a track that I'm not the biggest fan of. Very much like Richmond, gets the long runs. A guy can kind of dominate. It's not too much of a different kinds of racing lines. There is the high line in 3 and 4 more so than 1 and 2, I would say. But more often than not, Dover just doesn't really provide that excitement that I'm looking for. Feels like a long race. It feels like it drags on a bit. 400 miles around the 1 mile track. It is fast. I'll give it that. The Monster Mile, it's got a great name, but the racing product itself needs, I think, quite a bit of work. So I'm going to keep it there.
Yeah, I like it kind of where you put it here. I think that you can make it definitely a strong argument to put it up in average, but again, it's not to the same degree as Richmond here, but when you look at the current car and you look at the track, it just isn't meshing well, and it's resulted in some pretty boring races. It's got the potential to be a track that's all the way up and good if the cars work on it and the track's good for it. That's just not where we are right now. So yeah, I think it's very fair and needs work.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where I put it. I agree with you what you said there. So
nice.
New Hampshire Motor Speedway, Kyle.
Yes, New Hampshire. I don't know about you, but I think this might be the most bang average track in NASCAR because you've got some moments which are pretty exciting. But most of the time it's just kind of decent. It's there's nothing special to it. Maybe if the last couple races there were a little bit more of snooze fests, maybe it ends up in a needs work. But I think that this is like one of the most average tracks in NASCAR.
Fair enough. I'll put it in average there. Would you say it's above or below Richmond?
No. Richmond needs to be at the top end because that's a track that's got potential. I think New Hampshire, no matter what you do to it, is probably going to be an extremely average track.
See, I like New Hampshire quite a bit. I wouldn't say it's like a good tier. I think it's like very high on the average kind of category for me because the fuel mileage strategies that we've seen in the past at this track have just been exceptional. Just the intense moments, especially when it was in the playoffs. It's just kind of ever since it's gone from 2 races to 1. I can understand that scheduling change. They made the right decision moving it down to 1, but it does get rid of that kind of element of maybe that fuel mileage, especially with the stages right now. It does take that away a little bit more. It's one of the shortest races of the season, only 301 laps. So I can understand where you're coming from with average. So I'm happy to keep it in that category. Yes.
The next one is,
this is going 100% in elite.
Yeah.
There's no argument. This is the best mile-and-a-half track on the NASCAR Cup Series calendar. No doubt about it. Soft spot in my heart for being the championship finale since I've become a NASCAR fan apart from this past season. It's just the greatest way to end a season in my opinion, and I feel like they messed it up with putting Phoenix as the finale. Homestead is just the perfect way to put a closing chapter on the book of a season, starting in Florida, ending in Florida. It's just a great way to end the NASCAR Cup Series season. Provides great racing. You can ride the wall. You can go down low, tire fall off, everything that you want from a mile-and-a-half track. This has it. It just delivers each time. I cannot remember a race that I did not like at Homestead. Even when the leader's out to a big lead, I find it entertaining because there's always people moving around the track, looking for grip, looking for that extra inch over their competition. And Homestead Miami Speedway is just chef's kiss, the best mile-and-a-half track, 1,000%.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's easily the best mile-and-a-half. And although when you probably look at the rest of the tracks that end up in the elite tier, it maybe doesn't have like the same like history and mystique as some of those. But when you look at the racing itself, it's always amazing. As you mentioned, the way that there's so many different lanes to go to, it should still be the championship race. It's unfortunate it isn't. I wish we had 2 dates for it now that it isn't the championship race, but hopefully that comes down the road. Absolutely an elite tier track.
Yeah, 100%. If you don't have Homestead Miami Speedway and elite, very similar to Martinsville, you're out of your goddamn mind. Kansas Speedway, move on to a second mile-and-a-half track here.
Yeah, and I think we're starting pretty strong with the mile-and-a-half kind of section of it, because I think Kansas is probably one of the stronger mile-and-a-halves, nowhere near Homestead, because Homestead's untouchable as the best. But yeah. I think Kansas consistently provides pretty solid, good racing. It's unfortunate the way that the last race went with kind of the aero and everything kind of dominating the discussion afterwards. But Kansas is always a good track when the cars aren't as aero dependent. We'll see that again. So I think it's very comfortable for me in the good tier.
Yeah, I when they repaved it, I wasn't the greatest fan of it because nobody can control their car. But now that the track is aged over the past 8 years now, it is actually a pretty solid 1.5-mile track. It's got the perfect line where you can run the wall and still make time. You can run the bottom and still make time, and even run the middle and still make time. It's got 3 different lanes. I think it could become similar to Homestead as the track ages as well. Just having that nice fine line. It's got cautions when you need it. Even more so than Homestead, I'd say. It's got a faster pace to it, obviously with the more grip that track has. But Kansas, I think, has delivered quite a bit over the past 5 or 6 years, I'd say, as the track has kind of cured into itself with the pavement. So definitely happy to keep this in the good category. All right.
How did this happen?
It's a fun one. I honestly did not look at this beforehand to make it seem like I get this track. But I know a lot of people are going to probably have a gripe with this one. But I think this is a good racetrack. I think Auto Club Speedway, it's not elite. I won't go that far. I know that there is times where it can drag on a bit. It's my first, I've said it multiple times on the show, this is the track I went to my first ever NASCAR race, and it's got a soft spot in my heart just for that alone. But the racing product, I feel like, is actually pretty damn solid. They've got multiple lines you can run. Restarts are always fun to watch at Auto Club Speedway. 4 and 5 wide going into turn 1, the sweeping turn. Then who wants to take the high line and take the bump draft on somebody in front of them down the back straightaway, sending them off into 3, going down to the apron. It's just got such a great diverse characteristics at that track. Tire fall off. You think back to the 2014 race where everybody blew a tire like every 15, 20 laps. That was pretty funny. But besides that, I think they have late race caution sometimes where it provides some excitement. And I'm pretty happy with keeping Auto Club in the good category.
I agree. I really like Auto Club. It's especially prior to the further restrictions on engine power. It was so fast down that front stretch, and just hearing the cars roar, I can only imagine what it was like seeing it live. But no, I really like Auto Club. It's a massive track, and we've seen with another track that we'll get to later where it doesn't work. But at Auto Club, I quite like it a bit, as for many of the reasons that you mentioned. So I'm very okay keeping it in the good category.
Bravo, good sir. Bravo. Thank you for agreeing with me on that. I know a lot of the NASCAR fan base may think something different on it. It's going to the short track in a couple of seasons' time. So we're only going to get one more race, it seems, at Auto Club Speedway in its current formation before they shift it down into a short track, unfortunately. I have to say, one of the 2-mile tracks that we have on the calendar, this should not be the one that's going into a short track. I'll say that. So
I also wish it wasn't, because one's much closer to me than the other one. But
yeah, exactly. It is unfortunate. But speaking of short tracks, we've got our third and final one already here, Kyle. And I mean, it's a pretty no-brainer.
I've got the easy ones apparently, because Bristol is going in elite. Now, if we had the dirt, it would go in the parking lot. But Bristol, absolutely.
It is basically a parking lot if it is dirt.
Well, there you go. But Bristol is arguably the best track in NASCAR, and honestly, I don't think it is all that arguable. It consistently is amazing racing. Just look at the 2 races we had last year, for crying out loud. It is so good, and it's a damn shame that we're only getting one of those next year.
Exactly. We put it above Martinsville 100%. Yeah. Okay, fair enough. I know some people like Martinsville a little bit more than Bristol, but I don't think that's even remotely true. Bristol
on that topic, Talladega above or below Martinsville? I don't know.
I'll say Martinsville's still above Talladega for me.
Okay. I like that. I'll keep it there.
I think Martinsville, it's got that X factor a little bit where it doesn't really get to a dry point. Lap traffic always comes into play when 25 laps into a run. I think it's a great atmosphere at that track as well. It's got some iconic moments. So I think
interesting one coming up though.
Indianapolis. So we're going to go with the road course version, I guess, of this one. We haven't seen this on the Cup Series calendar as of yet, making its debut this upcoming season. Xfinity Series race there this past year, which kind of prompted this move to the road course instead of the oval. The famed Indianapolis Oval that the Indy cars run on for the Indianapolis 500. That is no longer the case in 2021. So it's a bit of a tough one to kind of rate this one. So when I watched the Xfinity Series race and when I watch IndyCar races on that track, it does give me quite a bit of hope. I love the Indianapolis kind of oval as itself. I think it is an underrated track. I don't think that we needed to get off of it. I think it would have been fine if we kept it on the famed oval instead of going to the road course with peer pressure from fans. I think that it is a pretty solid racetrack. I know passing is limited, but there is something about racing at the bricks at Indy that has a bit of a sentimental value for the drivers and for the teams. But for the road course, this is tough. I'll put it in average for right now because I don't know what to expect. I need to see a race on it first, but I'm optimistic from the Xfinity Series race, but at the same time a little bit hesitant. I'll put it behind Richmond. But yeah, what do you think about that with that ranking?
It's okay in average, but I would bump it up to good.
Okay.
I just based on you don't have a lot to go off of. But I loved the Xfinity Series race there. It's a track that has a lot of history. Hell, the road course is held Formula One Grand Prix for crying out loud. So I understand putting it in average because we don't have a Cup Series race on there to actually judge it yet. But I would personally bump it up to the good tier. If you are wanting to keep it in average, I'm okay with that. But
no, I'm willing to move it up.
I would put it on the bottom end of good, with hope that it can maybe move higher in the good tier, or maybe even, hell, maybe if it's a banger, maybe it someday ends up in elite. But I would like it in good.
Okay, I will hear that. I think no matter what, it will be the last one in good because we can't make a firm assessment on it. Yeah. So, but I'm happy to move it up to good. I can understand that for sure. So I'm happy with that. But you get another nice one here, Kyle. Darlington Raceway, the throwback weekend, yes. 2-time on this upcoming calendar as well for the first time in a while.
Darlington, it is one of those quintessential NASCAR tracks. It's so unique because of the way that the corners are. It's different for each one. Put that bad boy in elite, absolutely.
Bad boy.
I love this track so much.
Where are you putting it? Behind Talladega?
It's up to you, but I would actually argue maybe ahead of Talladega.
No, I'm happy with putting it
I would put it ahead of Talladega, below Martinsville still.
Very much happy with that. I am a huge fan of Martinsville. Oh, no, Darlington.
Huge fan of Darlington. And when they let the cars loose again this year, putting it back up to the 750 horsepower package, just look at the Xfinity Series races this year.
Yes, please.
Oh, I cannot wait.
Yes, please. Darlington, just the greatest unique track that we have on the calendar. Totally different size than compared to anything else aside from Nashville now that it's on the calendar. But it's a 1.3 mile track, got an awkward layout, different corners on both sides. It's got a great atmosphere from the grandstands. It's just powering stands on the front straightaway, and obviously hosting the throwback weekend doesn't.
That's got to factor in too, right? Like the throwback's the best.
The whole thing, the fan experience, the actual what it means to it, what they actually host at that track. Darlington, I'm very happy to put in the elite category. Move on to another 1.5 mile track here with Atlanta Motor Speedway. A track that we've seen on the calendar multiple times, but it is going back to multiple times this upcoming season for the first time in a while. So Atlanta Motor Speedway's had some pretty solid races, in my opinion, and I'm going to put it in – I think it's a good track. I think it is a good track. I don't think it's average. I think it's probably like middle tier, a little bit probably above that of the 1.5 mile tracks that we have on the calendar. It's got some great tire fall off. We see some comers and goers. Who wants to take tire strategy? It's usually a 4-tire stop nonetheless on all stops, but who wants to burn their tires up early in the run? Who saved them enough later in the run that they can capitalize on the people that did burn them up? Kevin Harvick is the ace around there running the bottom line. He's just superb at that in all series that he's run at that track. He's basically the king of that place, as he is at a couple of other places. But Atlanta's Motor Speedway, I think, provides the opportunity of having some interesting finishes over the years. We think back to 2001 with Kevin Harvick and Jeff Gordon.
Oh, the classic.
Carl Edwards and Jimmy Johnson. I mean, there's just so many great finishes at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Not as much maybe as recently as we would have liked, but I'll stick with my stance and keep it in good.
I like it in good as well. It's just so hard on tires that being able to manage them it is a factor. And it's just different in that regard because we don't see any track like it where it destroys the tires that quickly, because you could go and take a stop, you can run a lap and a half and a caution comes out and you probably need to take tires again. Like it's great in that regard. We're probably getting close to the point where it kind of tips over that scale and you have to pave it at some point. But for now, I think it's very solid in the good category.
Yeah, when you think back to the 2011 finish with Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson, I mean, that's basically as good as it gets with NASCAR. So I'm happy to keep it in good there. A bit of a one that I definitely have a strong stance on, and I'm hoping you do too, but we've got Michigan International Speedway.
Oh, Michigan is elite. No, Michigan. It's the track that's closest to me, I guess, technically, but I've never actually been there. So it's not like anything that holds sentimental value. So it gets bumped higher. Michigan's going in parking lot.
Thank you.
It needs changes. And of the 2-mile tracks there, it should be the one becoming a short track. It's unfortunate that we're losing Auto Club, but gaining a short track in that regard, because it's great to get the short track, but I would rather keep Auto Club as well. And it's all this kind of stuff. If only we could just get rid of Michigan and make it the short track instead. Look, there's promise to it, but especially with this package, it's just boring. And there's no other way to say it. And I know you hold much stronger feelings than I, and I even put it in a parking lot, but it just needs a lot of work.
It sucks. Like, it's a bad track. Like, this place sucks. I never look forward to a Michigan race, if I'm being honest. In the summer months especially, like when when I was younger, trying to plan a vacation or something like that, I always wanted to go to a NASCAR race, and I look at the ones in the summer, Pocono, Michigan. I'm like, are you kidding me? This is the tracks that we have available during the summer months when everybody's out of school and could probably go to a race. Instead, you've got like some other ones in the spring months when you would rather go to those and you can't. Michigan is just a terrible track. It just too one-lined. You can't run the wall. You can't run anywhere. You have to follow the guy behind you, especially nowadays. Yeah. There used to be a couple of times when we had fuel mileage back in like 08, 09, and 10. But besides that, I can't really name a good Michigan race that I've seen at this track. It's just something that needs to be changed about it. I would prefer if it was just wiped off the calendar itself. I'm happy that it's going down to one race this upcoming season as well. Like, thank God they finally make that change. I cannot believe it took them that long to realize that it needs to be changed. Like, 2 races at Michigan and another one we'll talk about a little bit later is just so stupid. So Michigan, happy to put it in parking lot. I would rather than just bulldoze it. Put the parking lot right over top of it. I think it would be better served used as that. I know it's the Motor City, but it's not as important as it used to be with Detroit and Michigan as it used to be with the manufacturers and stuff like that. I know it's Ford's playground and everything like that. They want to do well, and they've proven that over the past couple of seasons that they really invest time into running well there. But I can live without Michigan definitely for the rest of my life being on the Cup Series. I'll say that. So another one here that I don't really have anything to go off of for the Cup Series, Kyle.
Exactly.
Road America. I have more optimism in the Indianapolis road course than Road America. It's just a bit too long for me to say that it's going to be as action-packed as something like Indianapolis. It's a longer layout. It's going to be the longest, I think, track of the entire calendar this upcoming season. So I'm going to put it in the bang average category for right now. Yeah. I don't really know what to expect from it with these cars, and Chase Elliott has the promise of dominating this race and it just being an absolute dud. But we have seen in the past in the Xfinity Series that there have been some exciting finishes, last lap corner banging, coming to the start-finish line, or some fuel mileage races. It has provided some good Xfinity Series racing, but I am a little bit more skeptical on this one than the Indianapolis road course.
I think that's the fairest one probably yet, just because we don't know what to expect from it. So just put it at the bottom end of average and we'll see where it goes after this season, just because we don't have enough to really pull from.
Exactly. You've got the next one with Nashville Super Speedway.
Yeah, well, this is kind of similar in vein to Road America, where I think you toss it an average for right now and see what it produces after this season. There's
What are you
some.
thinking?
I'll put it ahead of Road America for now. I think.
Okay.
There's some cautiousness with the track just because it is kind of a cookie cutter, but it is a little bit shorter. It's not the 1.5 miles; it's a 1.33 miles or 1.3 or whatever. The exact one is, but we don't really know what to expect from it. So average is fine. We haven't been there for a while either, so it's not like we can pull from like any Xfinity or Truck Series races from the last couple of years to maybe try and infer what it would be in the Cup Series like you can with the likes of the Indy Road Course or even Road America. You can't do so with Nashville because it's been so long since any NASCAR series has been there. So stick it in average. We'll see what it comes up with after the season.
I'm hopeful with it, but average is definitely the way to go with this one. Yeah. You can't put it any higher than the ones that are established.
And I don't think you can put it any lower either.
No, I agree. So. I can't say that it needs work until we see something on it. But
exactly.
We move on to Phoenix International
Championship
race, a track I've gone to myself as well.
My dad's been here.
Yeah, This is it's an interesting facility. They've definitely changed it since the last time I went there with putting the start-finish line on the other side. They bulldozed the grandstands where I actually sat for the race I went there, where the RVs are now parked on the,
I guess, is Lukas also the Bowman curse?
Maybe. Maybe the case. But this race, I'm going to put it in average.
Okay.
It pains me to do it because I always am a little bit more biased to the West Coast stuff because I think we do need a little bit more out on this side of the United States and of North America. But the racing itself is just hit or miss. And I like the kind of dynamic that they've done with changing the restart location so that they have the dog leg where they can swoop down a little bit, make that a little bit more entertaining. But more often than not, it's just kind of meh. It's like, is what it is. There's not too many opportunities for passing. You can get the high line going, it seems, with this traction compound, so that's nice. But if they overdo it with the traction compound, then it becomes a definite one-groove racetrack. So Kevin Harvick dominates this place most of the time. Maybe not for the past couple of seasons, but before that, it was just kind of the Kevin Harvick show. You kind of knew what to expect when you went to Phoenix. I don't like that as the championship finale. I think it could be a playoff race. It doesn't have to be a playoff race in my opinion, but I'm happy that I'm happy if it stays that way. I just definitely don't think it should be the championship finale.
Yeah, average is good for this one. I would think about maybe putting it ahead of Richmond on the average ranking. I know like you like Richmond a bit more than me, so I would be okay leaving it as is. But it's just not a championship-worthy race, and I think that's the sentiment a lot of people have. It's a fine race, but when you put a fine racetrack and make it literally the most important race of the season in terms of the championship, it just kind of takes away from the value of the race itself. Because if Phoenix did, let's say we did this a couple of years ago, and Homestead is still a championship race, and Phoenix is still its race on its own, I think we're probably talking about Phoenix in nicer regard. It's probably still an average track, and it probably ends up where it is still. But we don't talk about it in the negative sense that we do now because it's the championship race, and it's put on this pedestal that it just can't match.
Yeah, I think it could be a round of 8 track if you wanted to. Maybe bump out a 1.5 mile track. You have like Kansas. Yep. You probably think of bumping out Texas and then Martinsville. Well. I don't. Yeah. But you look at those 3, I think that's a decent round of 8. It's got a lot of variety there. You got a short track, a 1 mile track, and a 1.5 mile. I think it kind of checks all the boxes in terms of what you want from a round itself. But Phoenix is just kind of a meh track. It just doesn't give a whole lot. I liked it better when it was more of a cutoff race. It felt like it was more there was more energy, more excitement around it, more so than the championship race than this past season, which is really weird to say, but I felt like that was the case, at least for myself. So I'm happy to keep it in average there. Move on to another one here, Kyle. Pocono Raceway.
Pocono. I might get some pushback from you on this one, but I'm going to put it in needs work and put it there, and then we'll probably end up moving it down. But let me just get through it. It's an extremely unique track that needs a lot more, or it just, I don't know. I just feel like there's some potential there, maybe, just because it's such a unique and kind of cool track that intrigues me still. And I think about the finish with Ryan Blaney and Kevin Harvick there at the end, I believe it was. Like that's Pocono at its best, because there's so much room to work with. So you got to block all the way down to the bottom, come back up for the turn, all that kind of stuff. So there's some potential to the track. It's just most of the time it ends up being this snooze fest where everybody gets 15 seconds apart, and there's nothing really to it. So I can fully understand if you get to it and you want to put it down in parking lot, and I'll probably agree with you and we'll put it in parking lot. But I feel like there's a little bit to it that maybe still keeps me holding on, even though I know it's going to suck every time.
We're putting it in parking lot, buddy.
I know,
I'm sorry.
I know.
This track sucks. It's not as bad as Michigan.
No, we'll put it ahead of Michigan.
We'll put it ahead of Michigan. But this track sucks. The weather is always a big issue in Pocono, and the amount of times I've had a practice session, a qualifying session, or a race delayed in that track is just absolutely ridiculous. Or a track or the race gets cut short due to rain is ridiculous. Same to go with Michigan as well, the amount of rain stuff that we've had there. I think that has to come into play as well. Just the terrible conditions that we always deal with when we're at these two facilities. Pocono, too big of a gap between drivers as the race goes on. I don't understand how they get such a big gap because there's only 3 corners. I appreciate what it stands for in terms of being the tricky triangle. It's something totally unique, something totally different. I respect the heck out of it for that. But when I want to watch racing, it is definitely not at Pocono or Michigan, especially since I said this earlier. It is in the summer months of the year, and you think in the summer months it wouldn't rain, but it does every single time. I feel like in Pocono, it's absolutely ridiculous. And the racing product, it doesn't really give me much. I can think of maybe 1 or 2 times where I was actually excited for a Pocono race at the end of a race.
Yeah.
The 2017 Ryan Blaney, Kevin Harvick won. An intriguing storyline there for Blaney going for his first win. And I think back to the 2015 fuel mileage race in the fall one where Logano and Kyle Busch are racing for it. Logano runs out, then Kyle runs out on the final lap, and Matt Kenseth steals the win on the final lap. But besides that, I couldn't really name a Pocono race that entertained me. It's seen some vicious wrecks with Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson when they lose brakes and stuff like that.
Bubba Wallace recently.
Exactly. There's been some instances like that where it kind of takes your breath away, and not in the good sense. It does scare you a little bit. So I think Pocono, I would prefer it not to be on the schedule, but I do appreciate it that NASCAR is taking it into one weekend and then getting rid of it for the rest of the year, where they have the doubleheader, shortening the races, because it was a better Pocono race this past year when they did shorten the races. I will give them that. But when it was a longer one, I could care less about the race, honestly. And I hate to say that because I love watching NASCAR, but these 2 tracks specifically deserve to be parking lots, and I'm sorry to say that.
Yeah, no, it's completely fair, and I knew that was going to happen. I just want to play devil's advocate for a little bit. I do like it more than you do, but you know what? We bumped up Indy when I requested it, so we can bump down Pocono for you.
I think this is a bit of a more extreme case. I mean, I'll let it slide.
All right, you know what? Let's get back to the positivity with the Roval, though.
Exactly. I think this is no, this is mine, is it not? You did Pocono. Yes. So we've got the Roval here. Newish to the calendar, I'd say.
I'd still call it new.
Yeah. I guess 1, 2, 3. This is coming up in its 4th race this upcoming year. So Chase Elliott, obviously the king of this place, it seems, for right now amongst all of road courses. But the Roval, man, this is very, very tough. But I'll put it in elite for now.
Wow. Okay.
I'll put it in elite because this track has got a lot of potential to it. And there's a lot of elements to it that I really, really like. It's got the restart zone that under green, you are going faster than when you are going on a restart, if you didn't know, Jeff Burton. But I think it deserves to go into elite because Jeff Burton, messed up in the NBC sports car in the final chicane. Just pure comedy if you haven't seen that. But with all jokes aside, the Roval, it's an interesting track. I think it's delivered each time. This past time, it was a little less exciting than the previous 2, but I would say that's a little bit of an off year for the Roval. Was kind of a weird instance where it was kind of wet at the beginning, and then it transitioned into dry, and Chase Elliott just kind of had the race on lock. But for the racing itself, I think you've got exciting restarts. There's always chaos, it seems, around every single turn. I'm willing to bump it down to the top end of good, I think, is probably a little bit better. But for right now, I'll say it's elite.
It just doesn't have the longevity yet for me to be able to put it in elite. I would put it at the top end of good, right at the top.
Okay.
But I would
Kansas.
I wouldn't be prepared to put it in elite just yet because, as you mentioned, we've only been there a handful of times. We've had some bangers. The end of the Cup Series one this year wasn't as great as some of the rest of them. But I feel like give it a couple more years, and if we get 2 more just absolutely fantastic races, then I'd be comfortable putting it up with the rest of those elite tier ones. But my only concern is just that it came out of the gate so hot, and then maybe it just dies down a little bit here. And so I'll keep it high-end good for now. But, I mean, if we're being honest, if we get another banger this year, I'm probably putting it elite after this year.
Yeah, if you get 3 out of the 4 as elite races, you kind of have to put it in elite. But I totally respect that. I probably was a little bit too high on it, but I was pretty entertained with the first
like
2.
it. And I think the races we've had there so far do make an elite track. But do I really want to put
a little bit more history, a little bit to it?
Homestead,
yeah, I can understand
that. So
fair
that's
enough
it for me.
Fair enough.
I mean, the mile and a half counterpart of it does have the history.
We stay in Charlotte.
Yes. But I don't think it's a historical track that gets into the elite category for me. For me, I think this is a good mile and a half. It's got the history with it, which probably bumps it up a little bit. I'll put it ahead of Atlanta, but still below Auto Club. I think that's a fair spot.
Yeah, that's Charlotte for everybody that's watching.
Yes. I like it. It's good. The 600 has the history, but it can drag on, obviously being the longest race in NASCAR, obviously. But I think for a mile and a half, it's consistently really solid. So for me, it's comfortably in good. It has the history, but isn't the elite track that the rest of those kind of historical NASCAR tracks are. It's kind of the home race for everybody, of course. No longer has the All-Star race, which I don't know helps or hurts it, to be honest. But for me, a very solid, good track.
Yeah, I think Charlotte has delivered on multiple occasions over the years, whether that's fuel mileage in the 600 or an exciting finish to end in the 600, or even in the playoff race when it had it on the mile and a half. I think they made the right call with going to the Roval and keeping it the 600 to exclusively the Charlotte Oval. So I'll give them a check mark on that in terms of Charlotte and NASCAR cooperating on making that deal and trying something new with the Roval. But then for the actual oval itself, I totally agree that it should be good. I don't know if I would necessarily put it above Atlanta. I think they're probably very similar, hand in hand for myself.
Very, very similar, yeah.
Totally different kinds of driving styles, different kinds of races, because tire wear isn't as a big of a factor at Charlotte as Atlanta is. Nothing's really compared to Atlanta. Exactly. But I do appreciate the speed that Charlotte holds, and I do like the restarts quite a bit there. I think it just feels like a very congested mile and a half as well. It doesn't feel as wide in the corners, so it does provide exciting restarts, especially going down the backstretch. We've seen that multiple times in the 600 All-Star race, you name it, with this current package, especially when they're all bump drafting 3-4 wide down the back. But Charlotte definitely is a good track. I wouldn't say it's anywhere near elite, but I think it's a solid mile and a half track. All
right, coming up, we got one of my favorite tracks here in Watkins Glen. I'm interested. Yes, thank you.
I'm gonna put it. I'll put it above Homestead. It's the best road course. I'm not gonna put it above Talladega, but this road course is the best road course on the Cup Series calendar. Full stop, as you like to say. It is the perfect road course. It's got the S's. It's got the harsh braking zone into one. Got the chicane or the bus stop on the backstretch. Got the sweeping right-hand turn, and then you got a punchy 2-set corner stint to come back to the start-finish line. Not too long, not too short. The perfect size for a road course event, in my opinion. Got all the elements: heavy braking zones, fast corners, and more often than not, an exciting finish, fuel mileage, or somebody's right on their back bumper. We've seen the last 2 times we've been there in 2019 and 2018, Chase Elliott and Martin Truex Jr. battling for the last 15, 20 laps or whatever it is at the end, as they are just kind of hand in hand as they go down to the wire. But Watkins Glen, I love this track. It's provided some historic finishes over the years for the Cup Series, and I don't see that changing in the future as well. So I'm very happy that it's going to be back on the calendar this upcoming season. Obviously, with COVID this past year, they couldn't race there, which is unfortunate because it is a must-watch event every single year. But I know you feel very similarly with Watkins Glen.
Oh, I love this track so much. I have it even higher, but I'll leave it there. I'm okay with it there. But man, I love this track. I'm a huge road course guy, and when you look at Watkins Glen and NASCAR, it just meshes so perfectly for stock cars. You mentioned the heavy braking zone into one. It's so easy to go wide there, or wheel hop or anything like that. The S is there. The bus stop, the carousel's an underrated, tricky corner to get right as well.
Yes.
And just everything about it is just perfect for me. So I absolutely love that track, and easily the best road course on the schedule.
I do appreciate as well with the broadcasting side of things that they've done the radio style for the past couple of times we've been there as well. So it's not so kind of bland every single lap where, there may not be as many passing opportunities. We get to hear some different voices. Mike Bagley does a great job for Sirius XM. And when he comes over and does the actual TV side of things, he does a great job. So, and Junior's always hilarious just in his kind of stint there in the bus stop of how he talks. So, a very interesting side on the broadcasting, but also the on-track product is probably what we're looking at the most here. It's just an all-around great event and something that I really hope to watch sometime live at the actual facility itself. So we'll move on here to Sonoma Raceway, another road course here for yourself, Kyle.
Yes, and this is one that I had to think about a little bit here. Sonoma is a road course that's been on the schedule for a while here. But when you look at some of the other road courses on the schedule now, obviously Watkins Glen, nothing touches that. The Roval has been fantastic. But Sonoma doesn't have those kind of same peaks that the other tracks do, or not as often. So Sonoma, even though it is a road course, even though it's been on the schedule for a while, I think it's an average track. What are your thoughts?
Interesting. I would lean on the backside of good for myself. Yeah. I think it's had some pretty solid racing in the past. I'm a bit skeptical on the decision that they've made to switch it, the layout of it, where they have the sweeping left-hander now, like how the Indy cars raced on it. I preferred it when they went down the hill and into the hard braking right-hander, and then going down into the another heavy braking right-hander instead of what they have now. I think it limits passing opportunities a little bit. But before that, I would say it's good, but I can definitely understand why it would be average. I think the last corner itself is pretty unique.
I think it's high-end average.
But by the time they get there, usually it's pretty spread out already. So, and more so lately, it hasn't been as entertaining. We didn't get to see it this past year as well with COVID as well. But I'm happy to stick it in high-end average. Where would you like this?
Maybe split it between Richmond and Phoenix there.
Okay. Yeah, I'm good with that. It's definitely the lesser of the 3 road courses that were previously on the calendar before the new additions this upcoming season. So, Texas Motor Speedway.
Texas Motor Speedway.
If you had asked me this about 5 years ago, 6 years ago now, I would think much differently than what I do currently. Oh man, this is the tough one, because this past race was pretty entertaining, I'm not going to lie, at Texas Motor Speedway. But if it wasn't up for that result, I would definitely think otherwise. Damn, it's either needs work or parking lot for me for Texas Motor Speedway. I'm going to leave it in needs work, because I think if the track ages a little bit more, there is potential, because they didn't touch 3 and 4, and when it was kind of aged, it was pretty decent. They just destroyed it with the turn 1 and 2. I hope that when it ages a little bit more, that it will be somewhat similar to what it was before, because the turn 1 and 2, I would argue, was the best part of that track before they resurfaced it instead of 3 and 4, because 1 and 2, I felt like you could run higher than you could in 3 and 4, and it would actually be more of a gain. So I think it needs work. I think as time goes on, maybe it will become something. The traction compound definitely helped a little bit this past time, but I don't know. I don't like where it is in the schedule for that second race. I understand why they're moving it to the All-Star race for this upcoming season. I think they are going to overdose on Texas, but getting rid of one Cup Series race for it and putting an All-Star race and then just one regular one makes sense to me. So I'll say that it needs work. I don't think it's as bad as what Pocono or Michigan is, because it doesn't get as spread out. I think there is some excitement a little bit towards it now. But I think it's gotten better since 2016. I will say that. Over the years, I think it has progressed by fine margins each time we've gone there. But there's nowhere near average, nowhere near good, nowhere near elite. I think it's definitely below Dover, but it needs work.
Yeah, I would hear an argument for parking lot, certainly. But given how recently it was a good track, I would be comfortable putting it in needs work as well, because there is that kind of long-term potential. When it wears, maybe something can happen there. But they just kind of butchered it, if we're being honest. It was really, really solid before that, the repave, and it's just been crap ever since. As you mentioned, this past race maybe redeems it a little bit more than it probably should. But you know what? The needs work needs a little bit of company there, so I'm okay putting Texas there.
Yeah, I'm happy that you agree with that, because I was unsure of it as you were coming down to the name. I was like, oh, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? But I do think needs work is probably an accurate place to keep Texas Motor Speedway. So we move into, I guess we can do double here. We'll say that we don't have the Daytona road course because it's not on this tier maker, but we'll put the Daytona Oval, and then we'll just have to try and think of where we're going to put the road course itself. But you've got the Daytona International Speedway.
Well, obviously it's elite for starters, but where in elite? Because when you think of Daytona, it is NASCAR. But in terms of the on track, I think that I want to keep Bristol 1, so we'll put Daytona right after it in a lead.
Whoa. Okay. I may get a little hate for this, but I do think it is below Talladega in terms of excitement.
Okay.
I do. Man, I think they're very similar. Like, there's characteristics to each that I appreciate more. The 500
just adds so much to it.
I know.
It's the most
really
anticipated race of the year for me. So even though I think I would hear the argument that Talladega is the more exciting of the two super speedways, I think the lead up to the 500 and everything that is the Daytona 500 makes it still that second ranked one for me.
If this was me, I would put it at fourth. It's behind Martinsville and Darlington.
Wow. Okay. Why don't we split the difference and put it at 3?
Okay, we'll put Martinsville at 2. Daytona, I'm okay with that.
I'm comfortable with that too.
This is yours. This is your thing. I'll let Daytona have its third spot. It's definitely an elite. If you don't think it's elite, you're out of your mind. But
if you don't think it's elite, you've never watched NASCAR in your life.
Exactly, and most people do. If you don't even watch NASCAR on a regular basis, they watch this one. They watch this one. So Daytona is gonna have an historic place forever in NASCAR, and very much looking forward to the upcoming season debuting here on the high banks. Well, I guess it's not really on the high banks this upcoming season. It is on the road course, and we can talk about that briefly now. We can kind of go between ourselves with this one, but Daytona road course, Kyle, it's an interesting one because we had a Cup Series race this past year, as it did replace Watkins Glen. It kind of left a little bit more to be desired. It is going to be the second race this upcoming season as well, with Auto Club not being on the calendar, but for the purposes of this tier maker, we did put it on here. But the Daytona road course is a very historic track for the IMSA side of things, the endurance racing, obviously the Rolex 24 coming up in the next couple of weeks. But for NASCAR, I don't know if it's necessarily the right fit for this kind of car. And for that reason, I would say it's a bang average track. I would probably put it even below New Hampshire and above Nashville and Road America for me, just because we don't know Nashville and Road America. But of the tracks that we've seen the Cup Series cars race on, I would put it below New Hampshire just because I was optimistic coming into it, but it kind of left a little bit more.
I think that's perfectly fair because it doesn't have the history in NASCAR that kind of propels it forwards as a race to look forwards to. Because last year was essentially the first time that we'd been there in the Cup Series, and yeah, I like the road course racing, so I still enjoyed the race, but it wasn't a good race. It wasn't an elite race. It was a fine race. So I think average and in that spot is absolutely fair, and I would rather it not be on the schedule going forward as a regular season race. I'm cautious about what it'll be as the Clash as well, just because the Clash has so few cars compared to the regular season races. So I don't really know what to really make of the road course at Daytona in NASCAR yet, but maybe we get a fantastic Clash and a fantastic regular season race that completely changes their mind. But for right now, I think it's the lower end of average.
When you look at what
for
the
NASCAR,
Roval was in its
for NASCAR.
yes, for 100%. When you look at what the Roval was for its debut and you compare that to the Daytona road course, I know it's a totally different type of track, but one definitely delivered way more than the other. So
and well, to that point as well, if we can get rid of that stupid chicane and just make it the Daytona road course the same layout as the Rolex 24, that would be way better. But I know they won't do that.
Yeah, that last chicane is just to decrease the speeds, I guess, going into turn one. So they didn't miss
but you know what? They're professional race car drivers, so they should be able to know how to use the brake pedal.
I understand where you're coming from, man. We move into the last two then, Kyle. Las Vegas Motor Speedway, and we end it with the Circuit of the Americas. I guess I've got Vegas here, and you ended off with the road course. So Las Vegas, another track that I've been to. It's a fun track. It's got a great facility. It's got a great garage area, great fan experience outside the track and inside as well. It's just a very unique looking garage just from the fans' point of view here quickly. It's got kind of like a diamond a little bit where you can see all the drivers. You can walk around on it. It's very fan friendly, a very fun facility. You can see most of the track. And the racing itself, though, is kind of mediocre, but at the same time, they do have some good races. I do think when they've switched to the day to night transition, it has improved the racing more so than the spring race. When it is the third race of the season, it kind of is when the teams are just kind of getting their feet wet. It's the first mile and a half track, so there's not much to it. But by the time the season comes into playoff form, it is actually a pretty decent track. Just look at this past season, Kurt Busch with the upset victory at his home track. It was a great story, a great race itself as well. So I think if you asked me this about 3-4 years ago, I would say something a little bit differently, but I would put it behind Atlanta in the good category. I think it's a good mile and a half track. It's got some bumps. It's got some tire wear to it. It's got some multiple grooves. With this package, you can run the wall. You can run the bottom. It's encouraging the nighttime races, but I think it's above the Indianapolis road course, but I wouldn't put it above Atlanta or Charlotte.
Yeah, I like it there too. It's kind of one of those tracks that are right on the verge of the good average one. So I like it on the low end of good there because the last time we went there, it was a pretty wild race. Vegas is a track as well that I've liked in the past as well. So I like it in that spot. I think when you look at the tracks around it, it definitely fits in. I wouldn't have it any higher than that in the good category, but I also wouldn't have it any lower. So I like the spot there.
All right. Last one, Kyle.
Last one.
Track we don't know yet, but we definitely are looking forward to very much this upcoming season, the Circuit of the Americas, or COTA.
Circuit of the Americas. We literally have no reference for this because we haven't run any stock cars on it in a race. So where the hell does that put it? Well, we look at the other ones that we've done. And Nashville, Road America, those are kind of the comparable ones in terms of the reference points that we have. I mean, we put those in average. I'm more excited for this race than those ones. So I would want to put it in good. But then when I look at how we have it laid out and one more average race would make it nice and even between the top three tiers, it kind of makes me want to put it in average. So I'm good with either one. Where do you want to put it?
This is a very tough one for me. It's an interesting one to end it because I am very optimistic for this one, for the stock cars on this layout.
Me too.
I would have preferred, we talked about it before, I'm a little bit more on the side of making it the shorter layout than the longer one. I do think the field will get a bit too spread out for my liking, but I am optimistic that the S's, very similarly to Watkins Glen, it's going to have a fun aspect to it. That first hard stopping turn one corner, turn on a dime. It's going to be interesting to see who throws a dime bomb up into that corner. I know some people will definitely be a bit more aggressive than others. So
of course,
it's an enticing track. It leaves me pretty excited for this upcoming one. Of all the road courses on the schedule this upcoming season, this is definitely the one I'm looking forward to the most. But I'm happy to keep it an average. But I could hear an argument for good. But I would think average is probably
Screw
something.
It. Let's put it at the bottom end of good.
You want to put it at the bottom end of good?
Screw it. You know what? When it comes to how excited we are for it, we're more excited for this race coming into it than the average tier. So I think it would be doing it a little bit of a disservice if we put it in average.
I think when we're looking at the track itself, I think it is a better racetrack too than Road America.
It's an F1 track, for crying out loud.
It's a well-built facility in the heart of Texas, and I thank the God that they are taking over a Texas Motor Speedway race for it. So that's going to bump it up from me as well. So I'll give them the good category for it, and that's all the tracks we have. Do you want to make any last changes to it? Are we looking at anything that we want to adjust, maybe one step forward, one step back, or even a tier higher, tier lower?
See, when I look at it, I feel like we got a good read of things. Just based off of the way that we ranked Circuit of the Americas in terms of how excited we are going in. But then it does I would consider putting Nashville in the needs work category just because I'm not excited for it all that much going into the first race there. But it also doesn't really fit the needs work category because we don't know if it does need work. So I would maybe consider putting one of those average tracks down, but what are your thoughts?
I could hear the argument for moving Nashville below Road America, I think. I think that's
okay, yeah, let's do that.
I don't know if I would move any of these other ones down. Like, I think they're pretty bang average. But, when I look at Richmond, New Hampshire, and Phoenix, they all kind of fit the same bill.
Yeah.
They're very similar kind of driving styles as well, so maybe that has something to do with it. Dover and Texas, I couldn't be harsher to put them in parking lot. I really like what we have in good. Roval, Kansas, Auto Club Speedway, Charlotte, Atlanta, Vegas, the Indianapolis road course now, Circuit of the Americas. Let's not forget we have an average, the Daytona road course as well. So
right.
That's not on here. So that does kind of make it equal with the elite at least. So yeah, I mean, I'm pretty content to leave it where it is.
Yeah, like when I look at the NASCAR schedule, there really is only 4 tracks that we go to where when I see it on the calendar, I'm kind of like, really? This one?
Yeah.
All the tracks in
could
average
change depending on this season. We'll see.
All the tracks in average, I'm like, okay, there's at least promise to this race. And obviously the good and elite I'm excited for most of the time. I think if we did this a year ago and we still had like Kentucky on here, I think that would reflect things. Chicagoland, I don't know where that would honestly
I would put it in
go.
good.
I somewhere probably between good and average, if we're being honest. I think we're higher on that track.
With Charlotte, Atlanta, and Vegas. I think that's I think I would probably put it ahead of Charlotte, to be honest. I think Chicagoland is a better track than in Charlotte.
All right. But I think right now NASCAR has a really, really solid schedule with the changes that they've made. We'll see how some of these new additions go. We might, after 1 year, be ready to put Nashville in parking lot and just be like, send them to the fairgrounds. I don't care how terrible the facility is right now. Yeah. Or we could go there and get an amazing race and it gets way up there. Maybe even gets into good. So there's a lot of variability with some of the new additions. I feel really, really good about our elite tier. I feel good about our good tier. So I like what we got going on here.
I think the elite tier is what elite and good I'm very proud of. I think that those tracks are just so well done in a lot of ways, from fan experience to the actual on-track product and what NASCAR delivers to those tracks as well. Bristol's 100% my favorite track.
Yeah.
It's just never going to be topped. I don't think. I'm not even going to put the Bristol dirt below. Like, do we want to put Bristol
dirt goes in parking lot?
We want to put that in parking lot. I think that goes even below Pocono and Michigan. Like,
yes,
we'll see what the racing product is. But for right now,
even regardless on the racing product, it shouldn't be a regular season race.
Shouldn't even be on there. Shouldn't even be on there. Shouldn't even be on there. Yeah, no. Sorry, had a brain fart. Yeah, but Bristol, Martinsville, Daytona, Darlington, Talladega, Watkins Glen, Homestead Miami Speedway are your elite tracks. The Charlotte Roval, Kansas Speedway, Auto Club Speedway, Charlotte Motor Speedway, Atlanta Motor Speedway, Las Vegas Motor Speedway, a lot of motor speedways there.
No kidding.
Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the Circuit of the Americas are your good races. Richmond Raceway, Sonoma Raceway, Phoenix International Raceway, New Hampshire Motor Speedway, Road America, Nashville Super Speedway, and the Daytona Road Course are all an average. Where would you put the Daytona Road Course in here? I would put it behind New Hampshire.
Probably, I would maybe put Road America ahead of it just because there's some more promise to it because we haven't been there, but I don't know.
Fair enough. And then in needs work, we've got Dover International Speedway, Texas Motor Speedway, and then in the parking lot, get rid of them. I don't want to see them again. Pocono Raceway and Michigan International Raceway. Michigan gets the honor of being the worst track on the NASCAR Cup Series calendar. There is stuff you can do to improve it, Michigan, aka bulldozing it, but we'll take what we can get. So that's the tier maker for 2020. Going into the 2021 season, we'll see what it looks like maybe in a year's time when we do this.
Yeah, I think we'll have to do it again and compare it. Yeah.
Yeah, this is get your screen grabs, everybody, and then you can come back and yell at us.
Oh, yeah.
And see what we got wrong and see what we got right for this upcoming year. So that's the tier maker for this upcoming season. And that does it for today's episode, Kyle. Very fun one. I'm glad we did that.
Yeah, that was really fun.
This idea out there last year, and definitely the tier maker comes through once again in a lot of different ways. And we got to finally put to bed who is the best racetrack, who are the elite tracks, and who are the ones that need to be bulldozed and made into a parking lot. So any final thoughts before we wrap up?
Yeah, that was a ton of fun. So we might have to bust out the tier makers again. Maybe for the F1 season, we do an F1 tier maker list or something like that. We'll see.
Something like that, yeah.
Something
we got plenty of choose from.
Yeah, exactly. So, but no, this was fun. I'm really happy with the list that we had. We agreed on quite a bit. We had some disagreements, but only slight. We like kind of the same stuff when it comes to NASCAR. So, so that was good. But yeah, fun episode. And checks another one off the box before the season.
Yeah, the season is fast approaching. We've got the Chili Bowl coming up this weekend. We've had a couple of qualifying races we didn't get to talk about today, but we'll talk about the main event on what happened over the weekend. Who won the thing? Christopher Bell and Kyle Larson, obviously the favorites most likely going into that event when they do qualify for. I think Larson has already. Christopher Bell has.
I believe. Yeah. I believe he was Bell. Is Bell tonight or was he last night? I can't remember.
Bell's tonight. Okay. I know that for sure. But we'll see if someone else can come and maybe upset the two big dogs there in Larson and Bell for the Chili Bowl. Going to be a fun one to keep track of.
Absolutely.
I don't know if we'll be able to watch it or not, but we'll try our best to give you the latest on that. And then we'll see what the future has in store for us for the Monday episode. If there's any more news, we'll definitely bring that to you. And maybe we'll have another fun episode or two before we get into our season previews for the NASCAR side of things. And Daytona is quickly approaching here with about 30 days or so before the season starts. So
yeah,
very, very exciting stuff here at the Green Flag. Make sure to go follow us on Instagram at The Green Flag, Twitter at The Green Flag Pod, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. All the links to those social channels will be in the link of the YouTube video description. But for this episode, I've been Lukas Wacker. He's been Kyle Cushman. Signing off for now. We will talk to you Monday with hopefully some more news. Enjoy the Chili Bowl, everybody.